on from a couple of enticing and extremely heavy trailers since The Last of Us 2 was announced last year, we've finally seen a decent chunk of gameplay. Sony's press conference kicked off with Naughty Dog's next game as we followed Ellie from a pleasant-looking barn dance to an extremely tense, blood-spattered encounter with a group of enemies. Absolutely nobody was messing around in this particular demo, even when they were having a nice fun party. So we thought it only appropriate to bring you 11 times The Last of Us 2 made us say, holy shit. Ellie! She's all grown up. And possibly because of that, she now looks even more like her voice actress, Ashley Johnson. Her motion capture performance is even better as a result. You don't need an inner monologue or exaggerated motions to understand what she's thinking or feeling during that opening. It's subtle and understated and absolutely perfectly pitched. This is, in our opinion, one of the ways improved tech is going to really make storytelling in gaming even better. You don't have to explicitly tell players what characters you're going through, which can get very hokey, like the Uncanny Valley but for emotions. They can act and react like real humans.
She, say something to you?
Make it 1 week.
The last we saw of The Last of Us 2 was a super violent CG trailer, where we watched a woman's elbows being destroyed with a claw hammer. Clip her wings, anyone? So it's a super welcome change to see Ellie having a good time in an apparently safe environment. And what's this? She has her eye on a lady. Plenty of people who had played The Last of Us, and especially its DLC Left Behind, were pretty sure, or at least hopeful, that Ellie was queer. And so, personally, it's super wonderful to see Sony and Naughty Dog lean fully into this and give us the character development we deserve. I almost dared not hope that her feelings would be reciprocated, but then, she gay, folks! Can you believe we got a full-on queer kiss at the very beginning of a major E3 press conference? I'd like to bottle this feeling and take a nice long bath in it, please. Ellie is rudely interrupted during her covert bit of eye-banging by this guy, who it seems has some personal history with the lady in question and wants to get her back. By way of conversation, he mentions having been given a hard time by Ellie's old man, and that he only seems to nag him about the patrols he leads when Ellie is due to go out as part of them. Presumably, the old man in question is none other than Joel, suggesting that there's a strained relationship between the two during the events of The Last of Us 2. We saw something similar during the game's initial announcement trailer, when Joel asked Ellie what she was doing. In case you've forgotten, the Watt was playing a song about murdering her enemies in a house full of, well, freshly murdered enemies. Exactly why they've fallen out remains to be seen. Perhaps it has something to do with the ending of The Last of Us. But however deep their disagreement, it's clear Joel still cares, even if the only way he can bring himself to show it is with a bit of heavy-handed administrative coddling.
And I'm gonna kill every last one of them.
Which begs the question, where exactly are Joel and Ellie at this point in time? It's clear from their surroundings, the string of lights, the glassware and booze, the mention of organised patrols and the apparent separation of people into ranks like captain, that they're in some kind of stronghold. But what? Where geographically is it? Who are the people who live there, and what are the motivations of those in charge? We don't really get the chance to ponder any of these questions because we're whisked away from a lovely kiss with a sweaty lady to a very different kind of embrace. For one thing, Ellie plunging a blade into this woman's neck is pretty brutal, which is kind of what we've come to expect from The Last of Us in general, but especially from the sequel. Every trailer so far has been punctuated by some pretty full-on violence. Despite the intensity of this moment, however, it's interesting to note that Ellie still manages to avoid raising the alarm. So often in video games, stealth kills are shown to not just be quiet, but quick and easy. You only need to take a cursory glance to see that. The Last of Us 2, on the other hand, makes a point of demonstrating how stealthy does not necessarily mean elegant. If anything, this kill is clumsy, slow, and more than a little bit panicked. It's also just the tip of the iceberg. As Ellie stalks her way through a leafy underbush, we see a corpse strung up by the neck, and then we get a front row seat as another unfortunate is gutted right before our eyes. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen this kind of thing in The Last of Us 2. Doubtless you'll remember the Paris Games Week trailer that showed Ellie being dragged along and dumped on the floor in front of two corpses that had been strung up and disemboweled in the exact same way. The very same fate nearly befalls Ellie in that trailer, in fact. So clearly, we're looking at the same faction with a very, very clearly established MO. The question, of course, is, who are these people? Are they the Fireflies, as we assumed from the initial announcement trailer? If it is them, they seem very different indeed. The Fireflies are a militia, but then the Paris Games Week trailer saw a woman talking about apostates and being nested with sin. And the people in this chunk of gameplay are definitely from the same group. And why are they referring to Ellie as Wolf? Wolf! Is it a catch-all term for someone who's where they shouldn't be, threatening the flock, so to speak? Or is it a specific term for Ellie herself? To be honest, we didn't really have time to think about it too much, because there was a lot of murder going on at the time. And you know, it kind of feels weird to even notice the violence in a game these days. But even though we've seen the things done in The Last of Us 2 done in other games, and arguably done even more violently, there's something about these acts in particular that really makes our jaw drop. We can't even put our finger on why it's so much worse. It's partly the photorealism, but also just the fact that you can really see and feel the weight of each move. You flinch when this dude swings his axe hammer thing. You wince when Ellie gets a bullet in the shoulder or stabs someone in the neck. It's also partly to do with the fact that nothing is made to look elegant or cool. It's messy and disgusting and looks genuinely unpleasant for all concerned, not just the person on the stabby end of the weapon. It's all gritted teeth and clenched jaw. You can see killing doesn't come easy to anyone, which makes things all the scarier. There's a grim determination there that really is unnerving. It's one thing when the bad guys in games don't give murdering scores of people a second thought, but when it's shown as a sort of really distasteful fact of life, now that's a real dystopia. And honestly, it's made all the more tense by the fact that you're all alone for this game. There's no Joel to back you up when things get rough. That thought makes us very nervous indeed. One thing that stood out to us watching this bit of gameplay was how much picking up, crafting and using items was a focus. Obviously, none of these things are new to The Last of Us, but the game really makes a point of showing you how coveted these items are, ammo in particular. Scarcity is clearly a thing, so perhaps The Last of Us 2, even more so than its predecessor, wants to make us really treasure each bullet, and make it last. It seems like characters definitely favour melee weapons if they can anyway. And of course that leads to important decisions over whether you actually want to engage enemies at all, or hide under a truck and wait it out, as Ellie attempts to do here. Though clearly, that may not always go to plan. The one thing that really is impressive about the new Last of Us 2 gameplay is that it makes the smallest of movements look absolutely fluid. Even when Ellie is in motion, she reaches out and lifts bottles and arrows, and she moves her body in response to her enemies even as they're rushing at her. And it has to be said, the camera does a really good job of following it all, pulling in and out as required to punctuate the action. We feel really nerdy for getting so excited about it, but the bit where this woman's arrows all spill onto the floor and then Ellie gathers and slings them all into her quiver without a moment's hesitation just looked very, very cool. And then, just when things are looking super bleak, it's back to kissing. And after all that violence, what could be better than seeing Ellie's absolutely amazing little beamer after getting a good kiss? Get it, girl. You absolutely deserve it. So that really was an eventful chunk of gameplay, and there were still no clickers. Well, we know that there are monsters out there thanks to the Paris Games Week trailer, but is there a reason they're being camera shy up to this point? Have they evolved somewhat? Or is it just because they're a known quantity at this stage? Time will tell, but in the meantime, we're interested enough by the good old terrifying human enemies. What do you think of the new gameplay? Are you more on board for the killing or the kissing? Let us know in the comments and check out some of our other E3 videos. There'll be loads more E3 stuff coming up on the channel as it happens, so do subscribe to Eurogamer to keep up to date. Like if you enjoyed this video, and thanks very much for watching. Bye!